Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Amritpal Singh. Coming up in the next 1 hour, US Secretary of State approves the sale of anti-submarine warfare sonar buoys to India. After India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh holds bilateral meeting with US Secretary of Defence Lloyd Austin in Pentagon. Gaza ceasefire talks resume in Cairo. Israel and Hamas sit across the table for the first time since the start of the conflict. Qatari Prime Minister, US and Egypt play mediators. Ukraine celebrates its 33rd Independence Day even as the war rages on in Kursk. Both swap 115 prisoners each in the UAE mediated exchange. And India's Union Cabinet approves the Unified Pension Scheme, the new scheme to benefit 23 lakh central government employees. After successfully concluding his two-nation visit to Poland and Ukraine, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi returned home on Saturday. During this landmark visit to Ukraine, Prime Minister engaged in high-level talks with President Zelensky and exchanged 4 key agreements. Here's a recap of Prime Minister Modi's historic visit to Ukraine. Take a listen.
Wrapping up his successful two-nation visit to Poland and Ukraine, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi returned home on Saturday. Now let's revisit the highlights of Prime Minister Modi's impactful visit to Ukraine on Friday. In a historic move, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kiev, marking the first ever visit by a top Indian leader to Ukraine. The bilateral meeting was held at the Mariinsky Palace, where Prime Minister Modi reiterated India's support for dialogue and diplomacy to restore peace and stability.
मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूं कि मानवीय दृष्टिकोण से भी जिस प्रकार की मदद की आवश्यकता होगी, भारत हमेशा हमेशा आपके साथ खड़ा रहेगा और 2 कदम आगे चलेगा.
During his visit, Prime Minister Modi also toured the multimedia martyrologist exposition on children at the National Museum of History of Ukraine. Accompanied by President Zelensky, he was deeply moved. As a gesture of respect, he placed a toy in their memory and expressed his deep sorrow over the tragic loss of young lives.
हमने जो दूसरा मार्ग चुना, वो दूसरा मार्ग है युद्ध से दूर रहने का. हम बहुत ही कन्विक्शन के साथ युद्ध से दूर रहे हैं, लेकिन इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि हम तटस्थ थे. हम न्यूट्रल नहीं थे. हम पहले दिन से ही पक्षकार रहे हैं और हमारा पक्ष है शांति का.
Prime Minister Modi also paid homage to Mahatma Gandhi at his statue in Kiev. He highlighted the enduring relevance of Gandhi's message of peace in addressing global challenges. The visit saw India and Ukraine also holding delegation-level talks. The leaders held discussions on trade, defense, pharmaceuticals, agriculture and education. India and Ukraine also exchanged 4 agreements in the field of agriculture and food industry, cooperation in the field of medical product regulation, Indian humanitarian grant assistance for high-impact community development projects, and in the field of cultural cooperation. India is providing medical assistance to Ukraine, which includes indigenous portable hospital Bhishma Cubes and other medical equipment.
As of today, we have agreed on the 4 documents that will be signed during this truly historic visit between Ukraine and India. These are regarding the medical field, the agricultural cooperation, humanitarian dimension, and I am grateful for all of this, and I am happy to see you, Mr. Prime Minister, and glory to Ukraine.
Ukrainian President praised PM Modi's Ukraine visit and expressed his gratitude.
Really very good meeting. And this historic one, and for us it's very important that the first Prime Minister from your very big country. I think it's historic moment, and I'm very thankful to Prime Minister for coming.
This landmark visit symbolizes a significant chapter in the diplomatic relations between India and Ukraine.
But peace seems a far-fetched dream in Ukraine, as neither party involved in the conflict appears to be backing down. On the 33rd Independence Day of Ukraine, which is today, President Volodymyr Zelensky vowed to take revenge on Russia. On the other hand, Russian President Vladimir Putin held a meeting with top military officials on countering the Ukrainian forces in the Kursk region.
His wife, Olena Zelenska, paid tribute to fallen soldiers on the 33rd Independence Day of Ukraine that was celebrated on Saturday. In an Independence Day video address filmed in the border area from where Kiev launched its surprise incursion to Kursk, Zelensky vowed to take revenge on Russia.
Our enemy will also know what the Ukrainian way retaliation is: worthy, symmetrical, long-ranged. They will know that sooner or later a Ukrainian response will reach any point in Russian Federation that is a source of danger to the life of our state and our people.
Ukraine launched its surprise strike on the Russian region on August 6 in an operation that Kiev says is aimed at carving out a buffer zone and bearing down Russia's war machine. Military analysts see it as an attempt to divert Russian troops from eastern Ukraine, where Moscow's forces continue to advance. Meanwhile, on Saturday, Russian President Vladimir Putin held a meeting with top military officials on countering the Ukrainian forces that invaded the territory of the Kursk region. Later, Putin also listened to reports by telephone from the commanders of the troop groups involved in the special military operation in Ukraine on the operational situation in the areas entrusted to them. On the other hand, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed concern for the safety of Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in southeastern Ukraine and the Kursk nuclear power plant in western Russia, urging all parties involved to keep in mind the sensitivity of these nuclear power plants.
It's a pretty clear and present danger to have these two facilities in the presence of the war zone. That's why we have been, from the beginning, asking all parties involved to ensure, with the Ukrainians and the Russians, to ensure the safety and the protection of these power plants, and also full cooperation with our colleagues at the International Atomic Energy Agency.
Meanwhile, Russia and Ukraine exchanged 115 prisoners of war from each side on Saturday after the United Arab Emirates acted as an intermediary. It is the first such exchange since Ukraine launched a surprise attack into Russia's Kursk region on August 6. Bureau Report, DD India.
And DD India's Dasha Cherneshova joins us live from Moscow for more on the story. Dasha, even as President Zelensky vowed revenge on Russia, the Russian president met with his top military commanders. What transpired there?
Well, indeed, we have the videos released by the Kremlin and the reporters here in Russia suggesting that the Russian president has held the meeting with senior military commanders in one of the command posts. No name has been provided, and no actually sound on the video has also been provided to the media because of the sensitivity of the issues that they have been talking about. We understand that President Vladimir Putin has been talking to Valery Gerasimov, the chief of Russia's general staff, as well as the head of the operation management of the general staff, Sergei Rudskoy. He has heard the reports about the situation in the Kursk region and also about the course of Russia's special military operation in Ukraine. And we understand that it is something that the president keeps on his personal watch. Meanwhile, the understanding in Russia is that there should be a response from Moscow to this incursion by the Ukrainian side. But first and foremost, Russia says it has to squeeze the Ukrainian troops out of its territory. However, we also seen that the sides do have an opportunity to talk. There has been an exchange of prisoners, 115 from each side, between Russia and the Ukrainian side. The soldiers have been swapped, and with the support of the UAE, we also understand that the Russian military who have been captured in the Ukrainian captivity during this Ukrainian incursion of Russia's Kursk region has returned to the Russian officials. They are now, according to the MOD, in Belarus, where they will be provided with the help and where they will have an opportunity to talk to their relatives. And the head of Russia's human rights ombudsman, Tatiana Maskalkova, has said that the work on the exchange is ongoing.
Okay. And also, Dasha, if you could give us a sense of what the situation on the ground is as of today in Kursk.
Well, air raid sirens is something that has become the reality for the residents of Kursk, the Kursk region, as well as the other border region of Belgorod, where those sirens go on and off throughout the day because of the threat of the Ukrainian missiles attacks. We understand that the Russian military continue to what they call squeeze the Ukrainian troops out of the Russian territory. They are continuing to chase the mobile groups of the Ukrainian military in the forests of the Kursk region. That's according to the Russian Ministry of Defense. We also understand that the aviation is conducting the strikes against the Ukrainian military. They are trying to prevent the rotation of the Ukrainian troops in several regions and several districts of the Kursk region, and also strike the Ukrainian military not just on the Russian soil but also on the Ukrainian side in the Sumy region, from where the Ukrainian side is being reinforced. Meanwhile, the residents, the civilians who have been displaced from the border districts, are very much concerned about their property that they had to leave. In the videos we have seen on social media, they ask what is happening with their houses, if someone is looking after those houses. And according to the acting governor of the region, Alexei Smirnov, it is the military police, the military, who are taking control and securing the situation there, preventing any possibility of looting. But keep in mind that Russia is fighting against the Ukrainian insurgents there. So there are many questions from the civilian population who also wonder how their lives will be, where they will have hot or warm clothes as the season is changing in Russia. Many questions for the civilian population, and they're definitely waiting to get back to their houses when the situation allows.
Okay. Dasha Chernysheва, many thanks for joining us from Moscow and giving us that update. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Saturday congratulated Ukraine on its Independence Day and expressed desire to further develop bilateral ties between the two nations. Congratulating his Ukrainian counterpart Dmytro Kuleba on the occasion, Dr. Jaishankar posted on X, and I quote, felicitations to Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba and the government and the people of Ukraine on the occasion of their Independence Day. Look forward to further development of our bilateral ties, unquote. And the Gaza talks have resumed in Cairo to bridge gaps between Israel and Hamas on Saturday. Sources say that Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani is attending those talks.
Gaza ceasefire and hostage negotiators discussed new compromise proposals in Cairo on Saturday, seeking to bridge gaps between Israel and Hamas. A Hamas delegation is in Cairo to be nearer at hand to review any proposals that emerge in the main talks between Israel and the mediating countries Egypt, Qatar, and the United States. Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani was expected to attend. Months of on-off talks have so far failed to produce a breakthrough in Gaza to free the remaining hostages seized by Hamas in October's 7th attack. Israeli negotiators were in Cairo on Thursday to meet mediators from the United States, which has presented a bridging proposal aimed at resolving continued disputes. In Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has locked horns with Israeli ceasefire negotiators over whether Israeli troops must remain all along the border between Gaza and Egypt. Meanwhile, U.S. Air Force General C.Q. Brown, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, began an unannounced visit to the Middle East on Saturday to discuss ways to avoid any new escalation in tensions that could spiral into a broader conflict as the region braces for a threatened Iranian attack against Israel. Earlier on Friday, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and US President Joe Biden, in a phone call, emphasized the importance of Israel and Hamas, showing flexibility in negotiations over a Gaza ceasefire for hostages deal. Bureau Report, DD India.
And still to come up on DD India NewsHour, a German official says the stabbing incident in a city of Germany could be an act of terrorism. Italian prosecutor opens the manslaughter probe in Lynch yacht sinking. And NASA to give a Boeing Starliner update on how to return Starliner's astronaut crew to Earth. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Amritpal Singh. The French president will hold a second day of discussions with party leaders on Monday as Emmanuel Macron tries to see if there could be a multi-party agreement on a new government after inconclusive election results in the country last month. Emmanuel Macron met left-wing and centrist politicians on Friday, including Lucie Castes, the leading left-wing candidate to be France's new Prime Minister. DD India's correspondent Ross Cullen reports.
Well, Friday marked the first of 2 days of negotiations at the Élysée Palace between Emmanuel Macron and the different party leaders. On Friday morning, local time, we did see the left-wing New Popular Front. Now, they are the alliance that won the election in terms of the greatest number of seats, although they fell well short of a majority. We saw them in attendance at the Élysée Palace. They were led by Lucie Castes. Now, she is the 37-year-old civil servant who headed up that delegation, and she is the name that has been put forward by the left wing to be the new French Prime Minister, and Emmanuel Macron has, for now, ruled out appointing her to that role. The current incumbent is Gabriel Attal. Now, the previous administration is remaining in place for now as a caretaker government. Emmanuel Macron saying he didn't want domestic political disruption when the eyes of the world were turned to Paris for the 2024 Olympics. But now that we have this gap in between the two games, he has gone for it and said it is time to act, although the left wing have said that Emmanuel Macron has been procrastinating. Now, what is going to happen on Monday is that the National Rally will be the next major party to attend these talks. The far right were projected to win the election on July the 7th, the second round of the election, but in fact they finished third, although they do have the greatest number of MPs in terms of single party in the parliament. Jordan Bardella, the party leader, Marine Le Pen, the party figurehead, will be there with Emmanuel Macron on Monday, but it does seem to be difficult to envisage how the left-wing alliance that won the election or Emmanuel Macron's centrists who came second could agree to work alongside the nationalist populist party in a future coalition government. Ross Cullen in Paris, reporting for DD India.
A manhunt is underway after an attacker armed with a knife killed 3 people in a German town. 8 were injured, 5 of them seriously, the police said in a statement early on Saturday. Meanwhile, a police official said that the incident might be connected to an act of terror. They have detained a 15-year-old and are investigating whether there is a possible connection to the attacker, who remains at large. In response to the incident, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz stated that the perpetrator must be held accountable and face maximum possible punishment under law.
Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday at this very time, a joyful festival is about to begin in the heart of our city. Yesterday evening, our hearts were torn apart. We in Solingen are full of shock and grief. What happened yesterday in our city has hardly let any of us sleep. The people of this city are moved. Many of those killed, injured and affected have family and friends in this city. I tried as best I could to make contact during the night and organize whatever I could. But the pain is immense.
Prosecutors in Italy have opened an investigation into shipwreck and manslaughter. On Monday, a super yacht collapsed during a storm off the coast of Sicily, killing 7 people on board. Investigations revolving around how an unsinkable vessel sank, while a nearby sailboat remained largely unharmed. In the incident, the crew has been saved except the chef. 6 passengers remain trapped in the hull. In the United States, independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. abandoned his campaign on Friday and endorsed Republican Donald Trump. He ended a presidential bid that he began as a Democrat, trading on one of the most famous names in American politics. It was unclear whether Kennedy's endorsement would help Trump in the upcoming November 5th elections. Kennedy said he would remove his name from the ballot in 10 battleground states likely to determine the outcome of the election and remain as a candidate in the other states. Kennedy said that he met with former President Trump and his aides several times and learned they agreed on issues like border security, free speech and ending the wars.
I no longer believe that I have a realistic path to electoral victory in the face of this relentless systematic censorship and media control. I want everyone to know that I am not terminating my campaign. I am simply suspending it and not ending it. My name will remain on the ballot in most states. If you live in a blue state, you can vote for me without harming or helping President Trump or Vice President Harris. In red states, the same will apply. I encourage you to vote for me.
Meanwhile, former U.S. President and Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump thanked Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for his endorsement, calling him a great guy.
We just had a very nice endorsement from RFK Jr., Bobby. I just want to thank everybody, and I want to thank Bobby. That was very nice. That was really very nice. That's big. He's a great guy, respected by everybody.
And the Democratic National Convention wrapped up in the U.S. city of Chicago, with Vice President Kamala Harris formally accepting the party's nomination for this year's election, becoming the first woman of color ever to top the ticket. Harris, who's of Indian descent, only launched her campaign weeks ago after President Joe Biden dropped out of the race, but she has already leaped in the polls with 73 days until the Americans take to the ballot box. Benji Haya reports.
Kamala Harris struck a measured tone on Thursday night, touching upon her ideas for the economy, immigration, abortion and foreign policy. But she did so in very broad strokes. Ultimately, this was more about presenting herself to the nation, her upbringing, her character. Despite her serving as vice president for almost 4 years, millions of voters here went into the convention unfamiliar with details of her background or what she'll offer in office. To win them over, she focused on the language of unity over division, saying she'd be a president for all Americans, putting country above party. As a former prosecutor, she drew a contrast with Trump, a convicted felon. She laid into what she says was the chaos and calamity of his first term, his efforts to subvert democracy, inspiring the crowd to chant, "We are not going back." That swell of support, that momentum, has carried her to a place few expected just weeks ago. But now comes the hard part. She'll have to answer very direct questions about policy positions come the first debate next month with Donald Trump, where she'll come up against a man notorious for evading, for disrupting, for insulting, and of course for exposing Joe Biden on such a scale on stage that he ultimately withdrew his candidacy. Benji Haya in Washington, reporting for DD India.
US space agency NASA will announce their final decision on Saturday as to whether the two astronauts Bush Wilmore and Sunita Williams will return to Earth on Boeing's Starliner spacecraft or hitch a ride home with SpaceX instead. This decision could have a huge impact on across the rapidly evolving space industry. Starliner launched its first two astronauts into space in June as a crucial test before it can receive NASA approval for the routine flights. But what was supposed to be an 8-day mission docked to the ISS has been drawn out by months after the capsule sprang leaks and some of its thrusters failed. If NASA exercises the SpaceX backup plan, Wilmore and Williams could not come home until the mission's conclusion in February 2025, and the Starliner would attempt to return to Earth empty. Still to come up on DD India News Hour, a discussion on how the sale of American anti-submarine warfare sonobuoys to India could change the security dynamic of the Indo-Pacific. We will free India from Naxal violence by March 2026, says India's Home Minister Amit Shah. Floods and landslides strike India's Tripura even as it triggers mass evacuations in Bangladesh.
The World Wildlife Organization tells us that over 3 billion people across the globe rely on seafood. There are efforts being made to preserve our marine ecosystem. So let's dive right in.
The course of the river was getting shrinked in the upstream areas, and when there is no freshwater flow, the river Ichamoti only survives in the downstream areas, and it has become, in our terminology, we call it a tidal inlet.
Habitat from so many places in the world, and people didn't even know that it had happened.
Mussels that live at the bottom of the lake have this large effect on the biology of the entire lake.
This is the poster that we provide to people on our fish walks. So they can just look at this and identify which are the fish in season, and when we give them the test to go out and identify sustainable fish.
It's worrying because rising temperatures cause the water to expand and with it, the sea level to rise.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Amritpal Singh. The US government has given its nod for the sale of anti-submarine warfare sonobuoys to India. The approval came during the ongoing 4-day visit of India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh to the United States. The anti-submarine gear is likely to cost about $52 million and is likely to give a major boost to India's anti-submarine warfare capabilities in the Indo-Pacific and the Indian Ocean region.
Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, who is on a 4-day visit to the United States, met US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan on Friday. The two leaders discussed ongoing defense industrial collaboration projects between India and the US and potential areas where their industries could work together. In the meeting that took place at the White House in Washington, D.C., they also discussed the evolving geopolitical situation and other key regional security issues.
The defense minister later held a roundtable discussion with leading defense companies. He also invited US defense manufacturers to India. Meanwhile, in a major boost to the Indo-US defense cooperation, the US approved a $52.8 million government-to-government deal for sale of anti-submarine warfare sonobuoys that will be integrated with Indian Navy's Romeo helicopters. The deal is likely to strengthen India's capabilities to meet current and future threats by enhancing its capacity to conduct anti-submarine warfare operations from its MH-60R helicopters in the Indian Ocean region and the Indo-Pacific region as well. Earlier, Rajnath Singh also met Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, where the two leaders held wide-ranging discussions on bilateral defense cooperation, industrial collaboration, regional security, and other international issues. Both the leaders also discussed India-US Defense Industrial Cooperation Roadmap that was signed last year, which is likely to transform the defense industry of both the nations. Akshay Dongre, DD India.
And DD India correspondent Akshay Dongre joins us live for more on this deal that has been approved by the United States Secretary of State. Akshay, give us a sense of how big a milestone will this deal, if it comes through after the approval by the US Congress, be in the Indo-US strategic partnership?
Well, Amritpal, we have to look at it this way, that these are certain critical technologies that countries possess. In fact, there are certain technologies that US does not share with even its closest partners, its allies, even the NATO allies. And that is where, the diplomacy that we have been seeing in the past 10 years has been coming into play, be it, state-of-the-art transport aircraft, be it state-of-the-art fighter jets. All of that has been on offer by the US side. And now, if you're looking at the sonobuoys that has been given a nod by the United States government, it's not that they just need to earn money from it. It is also a relationship of trust, because these are certain state-of-the-art technologies that are not possessed by everyone. And there are only very few countries that have the technological advancement to in fact develop and manufacture such high-tech arms. And US giving it to India is a clear-cut message that the relationship between India and the US is in fact enhancing to a new level. It is going to strategic level as far as the alliance is concerned, and even the most important technologies when it comes to national defense, when it comes to defense of maritime borders, when it comes to defense of land borders, all of that has been on offer. And the sonobuoys that if the deal goes through Congress, and if the deal is inked between the two countries, it is going to be a massive boost, not just to India's defense capabilities when it comes to the maritime borders or the Indian Ocean region, but it is also going to, in fact, significantly put India and US on a stage where both of the countries will be, coordinating and working on similar such deals and similar such projects as far as defense capabilities are concerned. Back to you.
All right, Akshay, thank you very much for joining us for the moment and giving us that update. And I'm joined on the show by Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, former Director General of Infantry of the Indian Army. General Kulkarni, pleasure to have you on the show. My first question, yes, sir. So first question, for somebody who comes from a non-military background like me, what is a sonobuoy? What does it do?
Thank you, Amrit. First and foremost, let me tell you, a thing like anti-submarine warfare, especially when you find the kind of adversaries that we have who may not actually be following the rules of law and, deviating from in the vast ocean, this is where it becomes very important. You are able to detect. And once you're able to detect enemy submarines in and around, you can always be able to, because submarines are going deep underwater, and to be able to detect them is extremely difficult. So the sonobuoys assist us in detecting. And therefore, in the anti-submarine warfare, when you can detect, then you can destroy. That part, destruction, is a later part. But detection is very, very important. It is in this context that these kind of, technology that are given is only when there is trust. And that trust is primarily because of the increase in the defense cooperation that is now taking place between US and India, and the various exercises that take place.
Okay, General, I'll come to that in a bit. I just wish to understand, you saying it's like equipment that detects underwater submarines. That's what it does?
Absolutely, acoustic sensor.
But my understanding was that it is very difficult to detect a submarine, especially say a nuclear submarine, which is a silent submarine. So how does it really work?
See this, it's acoustic. Acoustic is sound, even though there may be very little of it being, but anything which moves in water will emit sound. And it is those waves, the acoustic waves, which are then caught. And then you know exactly where your enemy submarines are or anything that is moving in and around there. So in an anti-submarine warfare, when you're a submarine means that you just don't know what's happening around. They're absolutely based on some equipment that you know what exactly is in and around you. So these are the equipment that assist you to tell you where the enemy submarines are or what's operating in your area of responsibility. And primarily to ensure that the sea lines of communication are kept open. Otherwise, invariably, you might just bang into something which is so deeply going under you. And nuclear submarines have a capability to keep flying the whole year round and for years on if required. Because they're producing their own energy. It is in that context, these sonar buoys, when they are dropped, they are able to detect to acoustic waves that there is something which we need to be careful about.
Okay. General, how does, I mean, you know, it's a vast ocean, the Indian Ocean region or the Indo-Pacific. It is so vast, the submarine could be, you know, floating around, I mean, going underwater, sailing anywhere in this. How many sonar buoys do you install or put down on the surface of the sea to find out where the submarines are moving?
See, despite all the equipment that we have, these are all certain things which are assisting us. There are satellite imagery, they are there. You know, there are other predator drones which are following you. There are so many things that are working in sync with one another. So this is one which is deep inside. The sonar buoy is dropped, and once it is dropped, it tells you. So there are certain various, I would say, in stages. Each one of them helping one another. We have to find out, because now you find the kind of things that are supposing is coming up. The Chinese submarines have been allowed, say in the Bangladesh Cox's Bazar, to be able to go to dock there. We wouldn't get to know till it surfaces. So even the movement to it, we should be able to find out. So in and around, both in the Indo-Pacific as also in the Indian Ocean region, for own maritime security, it is very essential to know, as long as they're in international waters, no problem. But how do we know that they're not in international waters, but they're somewhere in your own exclusive economic zones operating? So therefore, these kind of technology greatly assists us in finding out and ensuring that our freedom of navigation in any case is not hindered by the enemy.
Okay. Why are the Americans, General, giving it to us? What is their interest? Is there a common threat that they face which they may call a rogue player?
See, there is no denying the fact that America and India, along with certain other democracies which have, you know, ensuring the freedom of navigation on the high seas. You see Japan, you see Australia, you see UK, you will find France, all of it, along with United States, India. We are a credible force in the Indian Ocean. There is no denying the fact. The Indo-Pacific seems to be, you see how the South China Sea, virtually the Chinese are taking it at their backwaters, the kind of disputes they're having with countries in and around. You see the kind of things that the Chinese are indulging with the Philippines in the South China Sea. It is in that context that we find that if there is no restriction, the China will be all for itself. It will be free for all. And there will be no freedom of navigation on these high seas. At least to ensure that there is freedom of navigation for one and all, because it's a common step. And this common factor must be ensured that nobody obstructs along this common, I would say, something which can be used by one and all. And this freedom of navigation cannot be obstructed, will not be obstructed. It is in that context that US finds India as one among them. Interoperability, the kind of exercises that we do with one another, with all of the countries that we are doing it, gives US the confidence that yes, India is capable, India can in fact be a force multiplier and be able to ensure that the Indian Ocean region, by far to a large extent, we have Quad, we have Squad, we have AUKUS, we have various kinds of intelligence, we have, you know, the other means of conveying what's going on anywhere else in the world. So all this, India is now a strategic partner along with United States and the democracies the world over, which ensure freedom of navigation. And in that context, you find this kind of the technology being shared or being transferred along with other things. It is just not this, the Predator drones you have, along with which they'll come, the 15 of them to go to Navy, 8 each to go to the Air Force and the Army. Then you have the just on the Striker infantry vehicles coming in, the Javelins which are coming in, the aircraft engines, F-404, F-414, a lot of things that are happening with the United States, only with the hope that, yes, these have been given, but they shouldn't be delayed. I can only say and feel that they should not be delayed, they should be transferred, and the United States trusts India, and India alone is one of those few countries with the capability to absorb technology, capability to be able to share technology. The interoperability is far more easier with the United States and other democracies in the world.
All right. General, being a veteran, a military man, a man who's risen from a subaltern to a top commander on the ground, held other staff positions as well. You would best know that when you acquire something new, the biggest challenge is integrating it into your already existing military hardware. How easy or difficult would that be given what we already have?
See, what happens is training is a must. Nothing, all equipment will come in with training. And until and unless you train yourself on the equipment that is being offered by any country, be it aircraft, be it tanks, or be it anti-submarine warfare, ships, anything and everything that comes, technology is something which is moving. It's not static. And therefore, one has to learn. And equipment has to be there. And once the training comes, it is to begin with a little this thing, but yet it's not that difficult because all of us understand English. All of us, are very easy to adapt in this kind of technology, and therefore technology absorption, we don't find it difficult. And therefore, I would say that anything and everything for strategic partnership with the United States comes great handy, and also is a huge force multiplier, something that strengthens defense cooperation, leads us to Atmanirbharta, and that is what is the need of the hour.
Okay. Yeah, General Sanjay Kulkarni, many thanks for joining us and sharing your insights with us. As always, it's a pleasure talking to you. Thank you. And shifting focus, India's Union Cabinet, chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, on Saturday approved the Unified Pension Scheme, which aims to provide assured pension, family pension and assured minimum pension. The decision was announced by Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav in a press briefing in New Delhi. The Indian minister said that the new Unified Pension Scheme will benefit 23 lakh central government employees. The scheme will be effective from April 1st next year.
आज प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी की अध्यक्षता में यूनियन कैबिनेट ने यूनिफाइड पेंशन स्कीम को अप्रूव किया है, इसको अनुमोदित किया है। ये स्कीम केंद्र सरकार के करीब 23 लाख कर्मचारी, करीब 23 लाख एम्प्लॉइज हैं, उनको इसका बेनिफिट मिलेगा। ऑप्शन रहेगा, कोई अगर एनपीएस में रहना चाहे तो एनपीएस में रह सकता है, यूपीएस में ऑप्ट करना चाहे, विच इज़ नेचुरली अ वेरी अट्रैक्टिव स्कीम, तो उसमें ऑप्ट कर सकता है। प्लस राज्य सरकारें अगर इसी फ्रेमवर्क को, इसी आर्किटेक्चर को यूज़ करना चाहे तो राज्य सरकारें भी इस आर्किटेक्चर को यूज़ कर सकती है। 1 अप्रैल 2025 से लागू होगी ये स्कीम, और जितने भी एग्जिस्टिंग एम्प्लॉइज हैं एनपीएस में, उन सबको ये ऑप्शन मिलेगा, वो यूपीएस में शामिल हो सकते हैं।
And the Union Cabinet also has given a nod to Bio E3, which is basically biotechnology for economy, environment and employment, a policy for fostering high-performance biomanufacturing. Bio E3 policy includes innovation-driven support to R&D and entrepreneurship across thematic sectors.
3 बहुत महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दे आपके सामने रखेंगे जो आज प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी की अध्यक्षता में भारत सरकार की कैबिनेट ने, यूनियन कैबिनेट ने आज 3 बड़े फैसले लिए। सबसे बड़ा फैसला है आज का, सबसे पहला फैसला है बायो E3। सब जानते हैं कि जैसे इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन था, आईटी रेवोल्यूशन था, वैसे ही आगे आने वाले समय में बायो रेवोल्यूशन होगा। बायो टेक्नोलॉजी, बायो साइंसेज से रिलेटेड जितने फील्ड्स हैं, उसमें आने वाले समय में बहुत बड़ी इकोनॉमी बनने वाली है और बहुत बड़ा उससे रोजगार भी पैदा होगा। इसके लिए एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट था कि एक अच्छा पॉलिसी फ्रेमवर्क बने। तो ये पॉलिसी फ्रेमवर्क आज कैबिनेट ने अप्रूव किया है।
The second round of the India-Singapore Ministerial Roundtable will take place in Singapore on Monday next week. The Indian ministers participating in it will be Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal and Railways Minister Ashwini Vaishnav. During their visit, the ministers will interact with their counterparts and will also call on the Singaporean leadership. The India-Singapore Ministerial Roundtable is a unique mechanism established to set a new agenda for India-Singapore bilateral relations. The meeting aims to enable both sides to review various aspects of their strategic partnership and identify new avenues to further elevate and broaden it. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be visiting Jalgaon in the state of Maharashtra on Sunday to distribute certificates to 1.1 million new Lakpati Didis. The Prime Minister will also talk to Lakpati Didis who earn 100,000 rupees or more annually. Various schemes are implemented aimed at empowering women in the country. One such scheme that has attracted considerable attention is the Lakpati Didi initiative, which aims to provide financial assistance to women entrepreneurs and help them achieve financial independence. India's Home Minister Amit Shah announced that the fight against Maoists is now reaching its final stage and asserted that it's time to launch a decisive and uncompromising campaign against left-wing extremism. Speaking to the media during his visit to Chhattisgarh, the minister assured the country will be completely free from Naxal problem by March 2026.
2014 से 24 तक सबसे कम वामपंथी उग्रवादी द्वारा की गई घटनाएं दर्ज की गई। 4 से 14 तक 16,463 घटनाएं हुई थी और 14 से 24 तक 7,744 हुई है, तो 53% घटनाओं की कमी आई। हमारी लड़ाई अंतिम चरण में पहुंची है और हम देश को 2026 मार्च तक पूर्णतया नक्सल समस्या से मुक्त कर पाएंगे।
An Indian passenger bus carrying 43 people veered off the road and plunged into a river in Nepal's Tanahun district on Friday, claiming lives of 27 passengers. 25 dead bodies were flown to Maharashtra through a special flight of the Indian Air Force on Saturday, while the dead body of the driver and the bus conductor were taken to Gorakhpur via road as per the wishes of the family members. On Saturday, Indian Minister Raksha Khadse and Nepal's Home Minister Ramesh Lekhak visited Tribhuvan University Teaching Hospital in Kathmandu and inquired about the health condition of those injured. The Indian Navy's warship INS Mumbai will arrive in Colombo on Monday for a 3-day visit. The Sri Lankan Navy will ceremonially receive this ship. During its stay, INS Mumbai will deliver essential spare parts for the Dornier maritime patrol aircraft operated by the Sri Lankan Air Force. Along with this, INS Mumbai will also conduct joint activities with the Sri Lankan Navy, including sports events and yoga sessions. INS Mumbai is the third of the Delhi-class destroyers and was commissioned in January 2001. The frequency and the severity of extreme weather events have reached unprecedented levels. Catastrophic floods, record-breaking heat waves, intense hurricanes are becoming more and more common, putting immense strain on communities worldwide. DD India's Rahul Upadhyaya brings us more.
Relief and rescue operations continue in India's northeastern state of Tripura after floods and landslides triggered by heavy rains killed at least 24 people and displaced more than 65,000. Government of India, under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, approved the release of 400 million rupees in advance.
The situation of flood has improved a little bit in comparison to the past 3 or 4 days. At relief camp, we are concerned that the situation will now take a toll on the health of the people, especially in the case of diarrhea. This is why we are organizing these health camps at various places, especially in the municipal corporation of district Pratapgarh.
In neighbouring Bangladesh, at least 15 people have been killed and millions stranded as floods caused by monsoon rains inundated regions in the eastern part of the country, triggering mass evacuations. According to local authorities, over 3 million people have been stranded as of Friday.
We could not retrieve anything from our home. When it started to flood at 11 p.m., we were sleeping. We did not know it was going to be so dangerous.
Deadly floods caused by seasonal heavy rains in northern Thailand inundated more than 2,000 hectares of farmland, with thousands of homes affected. New Prime Minister Paingtontan Shinawatra has asked for help to be sent to the worst affected areas in Chiang Rai Nang and Phao provinces. After the devastating wildfire near Athens, residents expressed shock about blazes affecting areas that were previously seen out of reach. In Brazil's Sao Paulo state, wildfire outbreaks were affecting or closing in on 30 of its cities. 2 people had died in an industrial plant trying to hold back the flames. The cities have been affected by dry, hot weather in recent days. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour, and now it's time for some sports news. A legal notice has been served on Bangladesh Cricket Board asking it for removal of cricketer Shakib Al Hasan from the national cricket team as he is an accused in a murder case. Shakib is one of Bangladesh's most celebrated cricketers. He's currently in Pakistan participating in a test series against the host country. World number 1 tennis player Jannik Sinner fired his trainer and physiotherapist after he escaped a doping ban despite failing 2 drug tests in March. The Italian tested positive for steroid clostebol, which can be used to build muscle mass, after his physio slipped an over-the-counter spray to a cut on his own hand before carrying out treatments on Sinner. The spray was given to Naldi by trainer Umberto Ferreira. The Australian Open champion was cleared of fault or negligence by a tribunal last week, accepting Sinner's explanation that he had inadvertently been contaminated with the substance by Naldi. El Tectico Madrid unveiled England international Conor Gallagher on Friday as their new midfielder at the Estadio Metropolitano. From being with Chelsea since the age of 8, Gallagher has signed a 5-year contract with Atletico until 2029, with a reported €42 million transfer fee agreed between the 2 clubs. The 24-year-old spent the early part of his senior career on loan, including spells at the Premier League clubs West Bromwich, Albion and Crystal Palace, and did not make his Chelsea debut until 2022. After posing with his new shirt, Gallagher told reporters that coach Diego Simeone was one of the main reasons to come to the Spanish capital. And that's all in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Amritpal Singh, and from my entire team here in Delhi, thank you for watching DD India News Hour.